and I couldn't help but do this random live because I had so many ideas around this topic, especially hearing a lot of my humanitarians who are afraid of being egoistic, sounding egoistic, and like not wanting to be egoistic. And I really thought that I need to have this random live as soon as possible to get to the hands of as many humanitarians as possible to talk about when are we actually being egoistic and when we're not. Because truth be told, that many of us want to be good persons, good people, and part of being a good people, we believe, is being non-egoistic, and that's amazing. But in order for us to also know what that means and what specifically that means, I think is helpful for us then to continue on our journey of wanting to be a good person. Right. So I see a lot of confusion there, and I wanted to give my perspective on this so that you have a better tool and better equipment to know when you catch yourself being egoistic and how you can actually shift to being non egoistic if that's what you want to. And the purpose of this, of course, is not to be perfect and always being this perfect humans who are non egoistic and all the things, because I don't think that's really possible and I don't think that should be the goal either, but rather, how can I catch myself so that I can go and transition back to being, I don't know, non egoistic good person if we wanted to, right? So, I thought that I want you to give like the comparison of both so you have a more visual way of seeing things, right? And then I will give you some of the most common phrases that I see humanitarians use and how that is actually egoistic and non-egoistic. Because oftentimes I think we believe that we are suffering from a lot of tiredness, a lot of frustrations, disappointments at workplace because of us being very non-egoistic, and then we're suffering from it. And I want to argue today that we're actually suffering from a lot of them because of us being egoistic, and maybe we're not just realizing it, and that's okay. We just need to now catch and see how that's actually playing out for you and what you can do about it, right? So, egoistic is for me is when we act out of fear, out of scarcity, out of lack. When we actually don't recognize our wholeness, when we don't recognize our resourcefulness, our abilities, and when we are acting out of wanting to feel good about ourselves at the with the help of others so that we feel good about ourselves, that is egoistic, meaning that it doesn't matter how you feel, but it's important that I feel good about myself or I feel good, and that is egoistic. Non-egoistic, I think, is when we're actually recognizing wholeness, the freedom, the resourcefulness of us as an individual, and we also recognize that with other people as well equally, right? So in other words, it's not like it's important that I feel good about myself and I at the expense of whatever happens outside. It's not that, but rather I it's important that I feel good about myself with my own resources. And I also recognize that you have your own power, your own freedom, your own wholeness to feel good about yourself without needing me to do that. That is for me the non-egoistical way of being and acting. Now, we can always catch ourselves from how we're behaving or how we're feeling, rather, maybe even, excuse me, how we're feeling, where we can catch ourselves to see whether it's egoistic or not. In other words, the intention behind it, the feeling behind what we do and how we show up, right? So, oftentimes we may catch ourselves not feeling good unless someone else does something, then we feel good. That is egoistic because we're saying that it doesn't matter how you act and what you do, but it's important that you do according to my manual, according to my um, expectation, and then I feel good. And I will give you examples of this, but I just want you to like have the clarity around this, right? So one of the main things I think that many of us humanitarians suffer is around wanting to be available to work all of the time, because we believe that that is a non-egoistic thing to do. And I want to argue today that that's actually an egoistic thing to do. Because think about it. Why would you want to be available to work all of the time at the cost of not spending time with your family, with your loved ones? Why would you do that? Right? I'm assuming there is some tinge or feeling of they can't handle without me, or they can't do things without me. Therefore, I need to be there. I need to be available all the time. In other words, we're secretly believing that we're better than others, or we can do things better than others, and therefore I need to be there. Right. So whenever we are comparing ourselves in a way of this is the only thing that I can, this is the thing that only I can do well, meaning again, we're trying to discount the wholeness and the capabilities of other people, undermining other people, and making ourselves feel good how great we are. Right. So that would be one of the examples of how actually we're egoistic if we are always believing or acting from I have to be there or I have to be available from the scarcity, from this fear that if I don't, then everything falls apart, meaning that then we're not trusting others that they are capable of doing things, and we're not trusting ourselves that we can actually delegate things and not do things in the time that we are not supposed to because we now have the time to rest. Then we're actually being egoistic because we're not feeling good about ourselves unless we are there available all the time, right? So we're not feeling useful, or we're not feeling good, or we're not feeling powerful unless we're available all the time, unless someone else comes to us and say, oh, how great you are that you're here all the time available and we couldn't have done without you, and then we feel good about ourselves. That's when we're being egoistic. So whenever we're feeling like good about ourselves at like with the help of others and not feeling good about ourselves without them, then that's egoistic. Because then we're not recognizing our wholeness, we're not recognizing our resourcefulness of how we can actually fill that feeling good about ourselves without needing other people's confirmation, or without needing other people telling us how they couldn't survive without us, for instance. And it's similar to the other statement that I hear a lot, which is they need me, right? That I think this is the one of the statements that we use a lot is they need me. Then you can ask yourself the question of why? Why do they need you? What do you think happens if you allow the others do their own thing, or do the things in the way that they see it fit? What do you think will happen to you? How would you feel? Because then you may realize then, oh my God, what if they don't need me, right? So basically, whenever we say they need me, we're like indirectly saying, I need them to need me. So I feel good about myself. So I feel useful about myself. And if I see that they don't need me, then I feel not useful, and that feels bad, right? So instead, the way that you can look at it is I contribute my part to the way to achieve the goals. Um, I want to do my part, they do their parts, and then we like from our whole and sufficient and abundant place, we come together to create the result that we want together. So another one that I used to struggle and I still struggle with is the statement that is I need to be right. And I think this we have recognized, many of us by now, that this is an egoistic statement. I need to be right, and if I don't, I feel bad about myself. right? So I inherited this from my father actually, and I can see myself a lot in so many work instances as well. I used to see that where if someone disagrees with me, then I feel immediate like anger or immediate frustration or immediate reaction to they shouldn't disagree with me, right? That's really what I'm saying. And if they disagree with me, then I feel bad and I don't want to feel bad. So that's why I rather keep fighting or being blamey or being in this offensive position. And that's all coming from me wanting to be egoistic. Because if I wasn't egoistic and instead I was recognizing my wholeness, my free choices in recognizing the free choices of the other person, then I wouldn't be expecting the other person to be agreeing with me the whole time, right? Because obviously other people have their own opinions and they get to say things in the way they want to, they get to behave in the way they want to. And my job is to show up in the way that I want to and in the honest possible way. And I expect the same from others. And if they disagree, that's fine, right? That would be the non egoistic way to act. But because I'm so attached to my fear of feeling bad, and that's why I feel like I need them to agree with me so I can feel good about myself or about my intelligence or about my management style or whatever, whatever. You can see. So that's why oftentimes I find that we actually suffer from our egoistic um, behaviors rather than non-egoistic behaviors because of the egoistic behavior I'm wanting other people to agree with me, and as soon as they don't, then I feel like I'm feeling bad or suffering, or I feel like my authority is questioned or whatever else I make it mean, and therefore I'm feeling frustrated and disappointed. Instead, recognizing that I get to be me in this conversation, they get to be them in this conversation, and then we get to discuss things. At times there will be disagreement, that's part of it, and then we come to a conclusion of what to do next. I trust that we come to a conclusion. Maybe sometimes we won't, and that's okay too, right? So that would be another way to look at it. And another one that I inherited from my mom, actually, the egoistic behavior that I find is so not helpful, but I oftentimes catch myself doing it, and then I catch myself going to the non-egoistic behaviors, and that the egoistic behavior that I inherited from my mom is I want you to like me, right? Because the message behind is really, excuse me, the message behind is really, I don't like myself unless you like me, right? So I really like myself only if you like me, and if I notice that you don't like me, then I will be crushed, or I will be secretly saying, how could you? Or I will be saying, why you don't see the amazingness that I have, or whatever, whatever, right? So that's why that's another egoistic behavior that a lot of us adopt and feel suffering from it because we are wanting other people to like us. And if they don't, then we feel bad. And in those moments, you can also ask yourself, like, if they don't like you, what do you make it mean, right? What do you think about yourself? And why are you conditioning you liking yourself based on how they think about you? Why are you conditioning yourself? And if you don't want that, how can you actually believe things about yourself irrespective of whether others like you or not? And this might be one of the challenging ones, and I have worked through a lot of these, is where like whenever I heard or thought that someone didn't like me, I would paralyze myself. I would start like behaving in weird ways. And I would forget all the things that I wanted to say, or I kept overthinking a lot afterwards why they don't like me. And instead of doing on any of the things, I decided, okay, how can I like myself and accept myself and be myself, no matter how others think of me in that moment in general, or go to the extreme of them not liking me. How do I want to still like me and accept me and being me no matter how they think of me or not think of me, like me or not like me, right? Because I didn't want again that conditioning that I can only like myself if XYZ people like me. But why, right? Why do you need them to confirm that you can like yourself? Is really the question. So I think I have yes, and the other big one that I just took notes of some of the ways, and the other big one that I think we do a lot of the time where we suffer is we see someone else saying something like a coworker, let's say, or a boss saying something like we should do this, we should do that at workplace, or we should not do this, and whatever the things they're saying, and then we immediately are like judging them and saying they shouldn't have said this, they shouldn't be saying this, or they shouldn't be um, actually even saying it in this way. How can they? They have this position, this high position. They are in this place now. They should know better, and all this judgment come up. And then the frustrations and disappointment, or not liking the other person, all of this will come up. And then it will become so difficult for us then to work with them again, we're believing that if they hadn't behaved in that particular way, then we wouldn't be feeling frustrated and disappointed. And therefore, we're somehow like making them accountable for how we feel. And therefore, now we are being in our egoistic behavior of suffering. And we're saying that, well, they should behave in the way that I think they should. And if they don't, then I'm going to feel bad and I don't want to feel bad. So that's why I rather want everyone else. I mean, of course, I'm exaggerating, right? But I want those coworkers to feel, to act in this particular way. Then I approve them and then I feel good about myself. So you can see that all of these behaviors that I listed above, all of them are coming from like the way that we are suffering a lot of the time. There we are being at work all the time, being busy all the time, or thinking a lot about work, or wanting others behave in the way that we want to. All of this are actually from coming from this egoistic place, from this fear of not wanting to feel bad or not wanting to feel in a certain way. And then we're like, we want to feel good about ourselves, but only if they behave in this particular way. And if they don't, then we don't feel good about ourselves, and therefore it's a problem. That is egoistic. Instead, we can always look at it okay, people are the way they are whole as they have their own resources. I have my own resources. I'm a whole human being who is in charge of how I can feel, how I can do the things the way I want to, how I can take care of myself when I need to. And I can do that without needing other people's resources to feel good about myself, or other people's approvals, or other people's behaviors, so to feel good about myself, right? So that is a non egoistic behavior where we are recognizing our wholeness, our freedom, our uniqueness. We're also recognizing other people's freedom and wholeness and uniqueness, and they get to behave the way they want to. I get to behave the way I want to in the honest possible way, and they do the same. And then sometimes we may not get in the sometimes we may not have communications that are very useful or very effective, but that's okay, that's part of the process. Sometimes we may get along very well, and that's also amazing, but we know what's the goal is and how we're going to go to that goal to serve in the highest possible way our people that we're wanting to serve, right? So therefore we're recognizing that in order to make that service, we need to be serving ourselves in the highest possible way. We need to do that with our coworkers, with other people we work, and then we are serving it in this unattached way so that we don't make it personal, we don't make it about ourselves, but rather about the goal that we're achieving altogether. That is the non egoistic way of doing things in the world. Okay, my dears, I hope that you were able to see for yourself how you can distinguish between the two. and also see where you might be doing that to yourself or to other people, and how you can actually go back and change to how you want to be a non-egoistic person that is there to serve people in the highest possible way so that you can achieve the goal that you want to with the people that you are serving, so that they get the benefits and you get the benefit and feel good about it without getting their approval, without getting their liking, without them telling you how great you are. Okay, have an amazing week, and I will speak to you very soon. Thank you.